Hey gang, this is Marc Junkerman, back here in Junk's Yard once again. I am a law enforcement commander in the state of Maryland, and I'm a friend of the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation. And I'm here to give you another CISM perspective. So the last time we talked a little bit about the approach that I take, or the approach that I sort of advocate for, which is front-end inoculation before the bad things happen. We're going to talk a little bit more about how the culture, or our culture, affects sort of how we process things, and how that leads us into some of the decision making and some of the challenges we face as people and as CISM providers. So there's a band leader by the name of Irving Berlin, and he talks about that life is 10% of what you make it and 90% of how you take it. And that, to me, is a great sort of segue into this discussion. When we talk about a critical incident and what a critical incident is, in a nutshell, it is something that, an event which basically puts our equilibrium out of balance. It impacts our stasis. It is an event that puts us sort of in a state of flux, which can be a challenge. We also know that when we talk about a critical incident, the incident itself is not necessarily the impact. The impact comes in how we perceive it, how we process it, or how we don't process it. So you're already sort of, your body's fighting to get back into balance. And if it can't process, or it has a certain perception or a certain perspective of the event, it may cause you to struggle to basically put the pieces of the puzzle back together. So perception is a huge part of what we, or how we approach CISM, okay, and how we approach these incidents and the recovery after these incidents. I call this culture driving the bus. So let's talk about culture as just people before we talk about as first responders. You know, when I talk about culture, I think of it as in three parts. You have knowledge, which is your head. You have tradition, which is your heart, and then you have experience, which is your hands. So the way I look at this is, you know, we gain knowledge, we learn things as we go, okay? We feel certain things. We are literally indoctrinated into certain norms. That's what culture is. It's sort of that indoctrination into an agreed upon set of cultural, of norms, of behaviors that we collectively decide that, yeah, this is us. So that's a part of us. And then we take that knowledge and we take that tradition and we take it out for a test drive. And usually we end up saying, hey, that was really cool and I'm going to do that again, or man, that wasn't cool and I'll never try that again. And so that's that experience. The challenge that we have right now is, particularly when we're dealing with some of the situations of current events, let's say, you know, you have COVID. So you're in a situation where you, some of the knowledge, some of the things you know, the world's turned upside down. Some of the traditions, you can't adhere to those traditions because of the risk of infection, or because of social distancing, or because of some sort of lockdown situation. And our experience is limited to this. You know, there are some people who have experience with this, but for the most part, this is a generational type event, which is really having an impact. In terms of some of the unrest, same thing. You know, some of the traditions and some of the knowledge that we have, and some where we get that knowledge, is going to skew our perspective on things. So once again, our body is trying to get this equilibrium, and it's pulling on the knowledge, it's pulling on the tradition, and it's pulling on the experience. And not only are we sometimes struggling to find those pieces of the puzzle, but it's actually challenging some of the sort of the paradigms that we thought were the norm before. Compound this with the fact that when we talk about recovering from a critical incident, or people being resilient, being resistant, two of the biggest inoculating factors are good information, good solid information, and the ability to have some kind of social support network. In particular, these two events are actually very challenging in those two arenas. So the fact that we have to isolate as part of the disease, it makes it harder to do the things that actually are going to make us feel better. The fact that information is coming from all different angles, and it's a 24-hour news cycle, and it's really a challenge to figure out sort of what's actual reporting and what's actual opinion. These things are actually making the situation worse. So, you know, as always, we talk about be careful about where you're getting your information from. Be careful about how you're getting your information. Be careful about that flow, the news cycles, those sort of things. Be aware of that. The other thing is, even if you can't be close physically, there are ways through technology, through phone calls. There's a myriad of different things that you can do to make sure that you are still socially connected. And if you can do those two things, particularly in this environment, it's going to have a better impact on you as a person in general. So remember, daily mantra, we've talked about this every time we do one of these perspectives. Make sure that you wake up every morning, have a purpose for getting out of bed, take ownership for yourself. And once you take care of the me, you take care of the we, and you're accountable to and for your peers, okay? The next part, we'll talk a little bit more about the impact of culture for first responders in particular and how this all sort of meshes together, all right? So until then, remember, it's not enough just to survive the day. You got to decide to thrive. Be safe, take care. I'll talk to you soon. See ya.